we said a couple things coming in this game. Go back to the previews. This is what we said. Cleveland can't turn the ball over. When you talk about Cleveland, how many teams in the past 10 years have been in the Super Bowl with a minus turnover differential? It's not a lot of them. The turnovers are the thing that eventually sunk them. Don't be afraid of Cleveland's run game. If you're Houston, they are not who they seem to be if you just are a casual fan or you don't watch tape. As the course of the season's gone on, they've had injuries. They have not been able to lean on that run game the same. And it's not Nick Chubb back there, right? So don't be afraid of the run game. They were not, and they took care of business, 56 yards for Cleveland on the ground. And take the pressure off of CJ Stroud. They got the ball out quick, like 2-4, 10 pressures, no sacks. Come on, dude. I mean, that's great. That a lot of that's Slowick, a lot of that's CJ Stroud. The offensive line deserves props. Laramie Tunsil got hurt on an extra point.
That was a freak play.
Totally freak play.
And I thought it was on the touchdown.
Yeah.
Because they showed Tunsil hurt, and it was immediately after the touchdown. But you know how it goes. Sometimes they don't even show the extra points. So you don't get to
Extra
see it.
points are more unsafe than outdoor football.
I hate extra points.
So here's the deal. Tunsil's out for a little bit, and you're like, man, they really need to figure something out because at this point, this game's still back and forth. Like
The Laramie Tunsil without a helmet on aesthetic is like a 90s. It's like an Any Given Sunday character.
Yes. Yes.
Gold hoop earring.
Yes, he's
shaved
central
head,
casting.
no beard.
Central casting Any Given Sunday, especially with the gas mask on. But here's the deal. When he was down, you were worried about being able to protect CJ Stroud in the event that this continues to be a shootout. And what they did is they moved the pocket. They did creative things to get CJ Stroud on the move, and they weathered that storm, and they kicked their asses, man. And I think, Slowick deserves a lot of credit. He's going to be a head coach at some point.
Is he a little guy?
I don't know.
He looks kind of. I mean, I don't know if they have like a really far away camera in Houston, but I feel like every time
A faraway camera.
yeah, like he just doesn't look. He's not a huge guy, and neither's LaFleur, but he plays with a massive set of nuts.
Listed at 5'10", 170.
5'10", 170.
On the Michigan
Pretty
Tech.
average.
Yeah, he's
rough.
pretty average.
He's diabolically average.
Diabolically, but not average when it comes to pre-snap
No,
motion. That
no.
was huge.
No.
It forced Cleveland to have really bad eye discipline. And CJ Stroud, I can squarely put him in this category. And you can say I'm jumping out of the gym, but
Hall of Fame?
No, but we've been talking about this all, and I do think eventually, sure. But you talk about quarterbacks and the conversation Cam Newton has, and I put quarterbacks in two categories. There's this category and that category. You can call that
because of.
You can call that category something else, but I think you put it well. There's 6 guys in the NFL that I put in that category right now. I put Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, Allen, Stafford, and CJ Stroud in a category, and they are separate from the rest of the quarterbacks.
Jordan Love.
And Jordan Love, at the beginning of next year, however this ends, people are going to be talking about, is he one of those guys? And we'll find out. The sample size is too small. CJ Stroud, though, it's his first year, dude, with a rookie head coach, a defensive head coach. They lost Tank Dell. They weren't a talented team to start the year objectively, and they just beat Cleveland at home, a team that a lot of people thought matched up really well with them. And I think they got a shot this weekend. I'll just say that. I'm not going to count them out.
And they've got a bunch of guys. They've acquired a bunch of guys throughout the, whatever it was, this past offseason, this season. They got Adrian Amos out there. There's a guy named DeAndre Houston Carson who's in their secondary. And I was in Chicago with DHC. You were there as well. He was didn't say a word. He was the hardest worker on the team. He won all the conditioning drills. He was a core 4 guy.
Yeah.
Not a starter on defense, but now you see him out there, and he's a core part of their defense.
Yeah.
That's a guy that pays attention to meetings.
Yeah.
That's a D'Amico Ryans type guy.
D'Amico Ryan's guy.
So you're seeing the cream rise to the top as it pertains to whether it's it's not a lack of talent, but it's an influx of whatever the word
Think
is.
about
moxie, intelligence, football IQ.
Think about guys like Christian Harris, who's a newer piece. He's played really well down the stretch. I think Denzel Perryman has played well for them this year, a veteran addition. The secondary is quietly, although they gave up a bunch of deep balls and play action's been tough for them, I think they've got some players out there that you can build, with.
How about Derek Barnett?
Derek Barnett. Think about my guy, Derek Barnett Gumby. I FaceTimed him yesterday. I was so happy. Derek Barnett got run out of Philly, and I've always been a Derek Barnett fan. And I think for a first-round pick, it's hard. Like Kyle's been there, I've been there. The standard is going to be higher for you. You're going to get more opportunities, but the standard is way higher. And Barnett was a big part of our run in 17, and I thought he was a really good football player, and more importantly, one of my favorite dudes. Like, he's a great person, and he busts his ass and he plays hard. The thing that he would do was he would get some penalties. He would be, an offsides or stupid personal foul, but I'd rather say whoa than sick him. And Derek Barnett is always somebody that you haven't had to tell sick him, because he is aggressive. He'll play the run. He's a good pass rusher, and getting this fresh start for him is awesome. And he's part of a great group, and he stepped up in the postseason. This to me was like, if you know what he's been through, and Philly fans should love the guy too, because he's a part of Super Bowl history for Philly. He made huge plays for them yesterday. That was awesome. I FaceTimed him in the car yesterday. Got to see his big smiling mug, dude. I love that kid, and so happy for him. But here's the deal. When it comes to Cleveland's defense, the question that everybody's finally getting wise to is, why were they so much worse on the road? We talked about it all year, and JJ asked the question after the game. I think the answer is tough to pin down, but I had a theory, and it sounded kind of a crazy theory that I was going to work off of. Number one, we know the rush is really good, right? You're always going to get a bump from a great rush at home. But Cleveland, you've played there, Kyle.
Yep.
That grass is slow.
It's like Chicago.
So if you're manning somebody up, I think it's probably a little bit easier to play man on that surface. Now, that's my galaxy brain theory.
There's a lot of credence to that. I mean,
Okay.
I can tell you from a coverage standpoint, offensive linemen are coverage elements within the offense on defensive.
It's
line.
easier on thick
So
grass.
it's funny because at O-line, D-line, we are the DBs and you are the receivers.
Yes.
And you're running routes.
Yes.
And I'm trying to stick with you. It's a lot harder for me to stick with you in Houston.
And of course, Kyle, and they've only played
I want you to be in the farm field with me.
They played 5 games on turf this year. The results were all in the 20s and 30s, except for the Tennessee game where they played Tannehill. They held him to 3 at that stadium, which is inexplicably turf. But I looked at average separation. I got friends with Next Gen Stats Access. Okay, separation 3.4 yards at home. That's 15th in the league. Away 3.7 yards, which is a big difference. That's 28th in the league. So the coverage isn't as good on the road. And then the Cleveland open target rate is 53% on the road. That's 3rd highest in the league, which jumps from the low 40s at home. So there's a big difference in how much
0.3
separation.
yards is a lot.
That's a lot, okay? Now, the question is, and this is the next step, you want to peel the onion a little further, the average time to pressure, follow me here, because rush and coverage go hand in hand. What's the chicken, what's the egg in this situation? The average time to pressure, 17th on the road, home is 1st.
Wow.
Okay, so that's a big difference, right? And, I look at Jim Schwartz's defense, and I played for Jim Schwartz. When we played good quarterbacks, sometimes we struggled on the back end. But on top of that, I also think his defense is predicated on, it's mostly about the guys up front. They talked about him doing a good job against Shanahan, which is a little bit unexpected. His groups have done well against Shanahan. You also have to look at some of the quarterbacks we played in those situations when I was a part of the team, but also some of the quarterbacks he played when Shanahan was an OC or a head coach somewhere else. But more than anything, the reason they give those guys fits, Kyle, is because of penetration.
There's 2 types of defensive linemen. There's readers and there's penetrators. And that's one of the first things that young offensive linemen struggle with, that O-line coaches preach. It's like, hey, you're doing this technique wrong.
Yes.
It's not about you. Who are you playing against?
Yes.
And they're like, what does 96 like to do? Well, 96 is a jetter. That changes the offense. And you say against Shanahan's offense, a lot of that stuff is zone-based.
Sideline to sideline.
Sideline to sideline.
Gap penetration kills zone.
Cut a knife through that, then you're in trouble as an offense.
And I think there's that. And then I also think, if you look at 2017 when we had Schwartzy, points per game in Philly, we gave up 12 points a game at home. We gave up 24 on the road. So actually our defense was better. But and we didn't have Myles Garrett. But here's the deal. I think his scheme is, if you have a dominant rush group, which they are at home, but they're not on the road, coverage gets made to look a lot better on the back end because they play so much man.
You get tips and overthrows.
And
underthrows.
I looked at everything. I looked at turnovers. I thought maybe that the offense was turning the ball over more on the road and it was leading to more short fields. Not so. It's just, if I look at this, I say, hey, listen, the straw that stirs the drink is the front.
You're right.
And if the front's not getting home as much on the road because they don't have a silent count, and it's just the way it is, then those guys in the back end are going to get exposed a little bit. So, on turf, they gave up 45, 22, 35, and 24, and then 3 to the Titans. So, I don't know. Maybe it's the grass. It always could be the grass, Kyle. That's what I always say.
The truthers, they want this thing on speed turf and indoors.
Yeah, maybe they're the indoor team, ironically. They want to build a dome in Cleveland and keep Jim Schwartz around. But another thing is, a lot of these defensive coaches, and I think Raheem Morris did a great job all year with that group. I think he deserves a lot of credit. I think what he did is more impressive than what Dan Quinn did. Those are two guys that are interviewing for jobs, right? And I think that thing shows up too.
Moved down the Rolodex after.
I don't know though, because this always happens. Guys that are interviewing, their team doesn't play as well, and then you look at Jim Schwartz, who wants an interview. It's going to be hard to get one with the way that group played. And so, unless you have a ready-made dominant defensive line in your town and you're looking for a DC, I wouldn't.